In this video, we are going to talk about Terra Luna Classic, some of its recent price action, the important support and resistance areas, and where we can expect the price of Luna to go in the next few days and weeks. So we'll start by looking at the weekly chart, and what we can see right here is that Luna has been in a very clear downtrend for the past few years, since late 2023, but then more recently, since late 2025, it has actually been in a pretty strong uptrend, especially very recently since April of this year. We've seen Luna get a very significant rally all the way from this trend line up to the previous downtrend line. So we've seen Luna actually rally about 250% in just a few weeks. This is the most significant rallies we've seen by Luna in years since about late 2024, and this has actually happened despite Bitcoin and most of the crypto market doing very poorly during most of that time. Back in October of 2025, we've actually seen Bitcoin top and start very aggressively dumping all the way from about 126k from its all-time high all the way down to about 60k. But despite this, Luna has actually held pretty strongly and slowly climbed. And then more recently, since we've seen Bitcoin get a pretty significant relief rally from about 60k to over 80k, we've actually seen Luna get this very significant rally that we mentioned before. But since hitting this trend line, it then started dumping pretty aggressively, and Luna went down about 30% from its recent high to where it is at right now. It does seem like Luna has created a higher low right here, and it may be attempting to get back up to the trend line again, and perhaps even break above it and get a trend reversal from right here. So it is possible for Luna to start an uptrend in the longer time frame as well, but for now it is certainly not confirmed, since this recent high is still a lower high compared to these highs. So despite this recent rally and Luna actually performing very well in recent months, I still can say that there is a turn reversal confirmed, and Luna is still most likely in a downtrend. Also, despite this recent rally by Bitcoin, despite this very significant relief rally, I still think that we are most likely in a bear market, and that Bitcoin will continue dumping further, probably all the way down to 60k, perhaps even lower than that. So if that does happen, it makes the chances of Luna continuing the rally and getting an uptrend very slim, and it will most likely head all the way down to the trend line at least, possibly even breaking down below it and continuing the long-term downtrend. Of course, this is in the longer term. In the shorter term, there is some potential right here. As you can see, we have this area right here that Luna is pretty close to right now, that has acted as resistance a few times before, also as support more or less at this area. So there is definitely potential. As we've seen, Luna is trying to get a higher low right here from this area of support, so it is definitely possible in the short term for Luna to continue rallying from here and heading all the way up to the trend line again. But as I said, since I still think that we are most likely in a bear market, it does not seem very likely to me that Luna will break above this trend line. Of course, this could change, but I think that it's less likely, and that the more likely scenario is that it will get rejected off of this trend line again, or even not reach it at all and continue dumping further. So that's on the weekly chart. Now let's go ahead and check out the shorter time frame on the 4-hour chart. And right here we can see that in recent weeks we've actually seen Luna more or less just consolidate around this area. As we mentioned, this is an area of support for Luna. We have a very slight uptrend here, but nothing too significant, and Luna is still trying to slowly climb up after its recent high. So the slow right here is not completely confirmed, but it is definitely looking like Luna is trying to continue to climb up. If it can actually break above this recent high, then that would be a pretty positive sign and would most likely lead to Luna continuing to rally. We then have this resistance area, and after that we of course have the trend line that it will have to try to climb up to and potentially break above. So on the 4-hour chart, it is looking like Luna is actually in a slight uptrend, but it is not anything too significant. And as I said, there are still many resistance areas here on the chart, with this trend line and this recent significant high being the most significant resistance areas that I think it will most likely struggle with a lot. So there is some potential for Luna to rally on the shorter time frame for sure, but I think that in the longer time frame it is a lot more likely for Luna to struggle a lot and continue dumping further. Now let's briefly look at the Bitcoin chart itself. We've seen Bitcoin get this low right here at around 60k from a few months ago. Since then it got a very significant relief rally, but then more recently we've seen Bitcoin in recent weeks get a pretty significant dump from about 82k to 73k where it is at right now. And with this, we of course also saw Luna getting a pretty strong correlation to it and getting the rally at first and then getting a dump in the past few weeks. Bitcoin is also at a pretty crucial support area right here. We've seen this behave as resistance back in late 2024 around the 70k area, as well as more recently in March of this year. So Bitcoin could definitely get some support from here and rally a bit, but there is no low confirmed and Bitcoin is still dumping as of the moment. So again, in the shorter time frame, it is certainly possible for Bitcoin to get a bit of a rally, potentially all the way back up to this area of 82k, could even break a bit above it, could go even all the way up to this next resistance area, all the way up at around 92k. This is also a pretty significant area of support and resistance, as we've seen Bitcoin struggle with it back in January of 2026, as well as get some support from back in 2024. But I think that it's pretty unlikely for Bitcoin to head significantly above this, since I still think that we are in a bear market and we probably will be in a bear market for the majority of 2026. So if Bitcoin does continue its rally and perhaps heads all the way up to about 90k, then Luna could potentially head back up to the trend line, maybe even break above it. It is possible, but I think that it's still a lot more likely that we will just eventually see Luna continue to dump further with Bitcoin, of course, and that we will see Bitcoin at the very least revisiting this area of 60k and possibly even heading significantly below it. And now looking at the ratio of Luna against Bitcoin, we can see that it is in an absolutely horrible downtrend in the long term. It has been in a very brutal downtrend for years now. We've seen it just continuously crash since 2022, but then more recently, just in the last few months, as we said, Luna has been performing very well, even compared to Bitcoin, despite Bitcoin getting a very significant dump since its all-time high back in October of 2025. Luna has actually been rallying very significantly, and it is in an uptrend compared to Bitcoin since this low from back in October of 2025. We've actually seen Luna get a rally of over 700% to this recent high and about 580% to where it is at right now. So Luna has been very strongly outperforming Bitcoin recently, even much more than compared to the dollar. And here it is actually in a very clear uptrend. More recently, it has been struggling a bit more just in the last few weeks. We've seen it get rejected off of this resistance area, where we've seen the Luna against Bitcoin ratio struggle back in 2024. So now it is back at this area and it is trying to break above it, currently with no success. And again, despite this recent uptrend, I think that since we are most likely still in a bear market, once this relief rally by Bitcoin slows down and we see Bitcoin continue to dump, I think that it will actually lead to Luna dumping a lot further. I think that this will happen with most altcoins, since in the bear market, most altcoins perform very poorly. Of course, there can be some exceptions. Luna could actually be one of those exceptions. I think that there is actually a decent chance of it being one of them, but it's still not that likely. I think that most altcoins will significantly underperform Bitcoin during the continuation of this bear market. As I said, Luna does have one of the better chances of being one of those exceptions, since it is in an uptrend against Bitcoin for a while now, but it's still probably not super likely in my opinion. And I think that most altcoins in general will significantly underperform Bitcoin for the next few months, at least in the year of 2026, and probably even further than that until we see Bitcoin and Ethereum performing far better and heading back up towards new all-time highs, which they are both very far away from right now, historically, for us to get an altcoin season and for the altcoin market as a whole to outperform Bitcoin and Ethereum. We first need to see Bitcoin and Ethereum getting to their all-time highs. Historically, we first need to see Bitcoin get new all-time highs, then followed by Ethereum, and only then we can expect most altcoins to start outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum and an altcoin season. So right now, the scenario seems very, very far away. And of course, this isn't financial advice whatsoever, but I would personally avoid being heavy into altcoins at the moment. Specifically with Luna, as I said, there is a lot more potential and it is looking better, especially if it crosses the trend line as I showed you on the weekly chart before, if it causes a weekly candle above that trend line. But at the moment, I don't think that it is very likely to happen. And now, if we look at the chart of the total free minus USDT against Bitcoin, which is basically the ratio of the entire altcoin market, this is all of the crypto market excluding Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDT, the stablecoin, against Bitcoin in their market cap. So this shows basically how well altcoins are performing compared to Bitcoin. And as you can see right here, we are currently at 0.38. And historically, for us to see an altcoin season, we first need to see this ratio heading all the way down to this major support area on the very long time frame at about 0.26. We've seen it happen back in 2017 as well as in 2021. Both times we have not seen a very prolonged period of altcoins outperforming the Bitcoin and what we would call an altcoin season until we saw this ratio heading down to this support area. And in previous times when it did happen, we've seen altcoins very significantly outperforming Bitcoin for at least a couple of months. As you can see, it happened back in 2017 and then again in 2021. So currently this ratio is at 0.38, so it is pretty significantly above the support area still. It has been slowly but surely going down, and in the last couple of months, with Bitcoin getting the relief rally, we've actually seen altcoins not performing so poorly compared to Bitcoin. But in my opinion, once we start heading deeper into this bear market and we see Bitcoin heading significantly lower, probably towards 60k, potentially even lower than that, then we will see most altcoins and this ratio continuing to go down, which basically means that most altcoins will underperform Bitcoin quite significantly. For this ratio to go all the way down to the support area, we would need to see altcoins losing about 30% compared to Bitcoin. So this is more or less what I'm expecting to see playing out in the next, I would say, at least 6 months or so. It could potentially take longer than that, and we could see altcoins struggling compared to Bitcoin for a very long time. So until we see this chart and this ratio heading all the way down to this support area, or at least getting close to it, I would not even really consider an altcoin season and being heavy into altcoins. And now let's go ahead and look at the page of Terra Classic on CoinMarketCap. As you can see right here, we have the community sentiment according to about 280,000 votes. We have 86% of votes being bullish. This doesn't mean as much as you might think. Most people are just voting bullish blindly on these polls, and most altcoins have a bullish percentage of over 70%. So 86% isn't anything that special. In the shorter time frame, I could potentially agree with this, but on the longer time frame, I think that it's not very likely. I do think that it's actually more likely for Terra to go up compared to most altcoins on the market right now, even in the long term, but I still think that in the long term it's not that incredibly likely, and I am expecting most altcoins to perform quite poorly in the coming months. So I don't disagree with this community sentiment too badly, but I wouldn't say that I'm super bullish about it either. So to summarize it, I would say that I'm quite bearish on altcoins in general, but specifically with Terra, I think that it's one of the better altcoins probably. And now looking at the total crypto fear and greed index, we can see that it's currently at 33, which is slight fear. This is of course since we've seen Bitcoin get a slight dump recently from about 82k all the way down to 73k in just a couple of weeks. So it makes sense that people are quite fearful. We've seen this be at slight greed actually only a couple of months ago, back in April. And in my opinion, in the long term, we can expect this to go all the way down to extreme fear actually, once we do see Bitcoin continuing to dump a lot further and altcoins following it and probably underperforming it as well. Once we do see Bitcoin heading towards the area of 60k, potentially even lower than it, and altcoins underperform it as well, which I think is quite likely to happen in the coming months. I am expecting this to go below 20 and into extreme fear. And looking at the altcoin season index, it is currently at 37, which means slightly into Bitcoin season, which means Bitcoin has been slightly outperforming most of the top 100 altcoins in the market. And as I said, I am still expecting in the long term for this trend to continue and for Bitcoin to outperform most altcoins even further. So I think that we could potentially see this getting below 25 and us being firmly into Bitcoin season in the coming months, and probably for most of 2026, potentially even further than that. So hey guys, that's going to be it for this video about Luna. If you enjoyed it and you want more updates about Luna as well as other altcoins, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.